Hello, everybody. My name is James Lofton. I'm with the FDA of Georgia. I'm the sitting vice president and under Wayne Ewan, our president, and just trying to help them get through another great year of FDA. Today, we have an amazing speaker. His name is Cody Garrett. Cody, I'll do a little introduction on Cody. Cody's a certified financial planner professional and owner of Measure Twice Financial. He's a solo RIA that provides advice-only fee planning to DIY investors and on the path to early retirement. He was recently featured as guest on the Financial Advisor Success podcast with Michael Kitces. He has written a follow-up article about his planning model on the Nerd's Eye View. Cody has limited capacity for a one-on-one financial planning to serve 22 families per year, allowing him to spend over 20 hours per week creating educational content to give away for free at measuretwicemoney.com. Before becoming a financial planner 4 years ago, Cody also worked as a professional music director and keyboardist. His career transition from music to money has provided unique perspectives within the financial planning industry, including how he thinks about business models and advisor marketing. And with that, I give you Cody Garrett.
All right. Thank you so much, James. Good to see everybody. I'm glad this isn't kind of the webinar, kind of a meeting where I can't see everybody. I can see everybody who's got their screen shared. I love the smile, Stephen. I see you, David. We're excited to go. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started with my little slideshow here. Everybody's got a slideshow, right? All right, here. Screen. All right. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you can see my slides, but not my notes? All right, great. Awesome. So I really want to thank FPA Georgia for inviting me to present this happy hour discussion. So I'm really excited to be here. And as you can see in the title, I'm going to share my journey from being a professional musician to becoming a financial planner at full capacity in my business. And I'll really describe what that means in terms of deliberate capacity. So I'll describe how I understand and divide my personal impact between one-on-one financial planning and one-to-many financial education. I'm going to outline the 3 forms of advisor marketing that I've perceived since joining the industry about 4 years ago. Then we'll go through the process of creating an ideal client avatar and how to provide value to the unique families you serve. Lastly, I'll describe my perception of where I believe the industry is going, and I look forward to your questions and our collaborative conversations. So about half the hour will be kind of my formal presentation, but what's great is we're going to open up to questions to have a more informal collaboration after the slideshow. So just kind of start with my personal journey, kind of how I've gotten to this place. So about 4 years ago, I didn't know what an IRA was. Right? So that was all like, and I thought IRA was maybe some old lady I haven't met yet. But at that time, I was a full-time contemporary music director during the day, a Broadway musical performer at night, and a wedding band keyboardist on the weekends. So spending most of my time working, I decided in early 2018 that I really wanted to eat dinner with my wife every night of the week. And that meant making some career changes, certainly. So my wife, Marissa, and I had recently paid off our student loans while studying Dave Ramsey's video course, Financial Peace University, which is probably pretty common in the churches in Georgia, right? And I knew it was the time to start investing, now that I had paid off my student loans, but I didn't know enough to really feel comfortable getting started with investing. So I'm the type of person who checks out all the books from the library, listens to all the related audiobooks and podcasts when I become interested in a new subject. So I actually listened to about 3 hours of podcasts every day at 2 times speed for about a year in 2018. So one day my mom called me and she asked what I was up to. When I told her I had gained an interest in personal finance, she recommended I reach out to a family friend named Joe for additional resources since he worked as a financial advisor. So when I reached out to Joe, he invited me to lunch. What advisor wouldn't invite somebody to lunch, right? It wasn't a steak dinner, but it was a great Chinese meal. So he invited me to lunch, like advisors do, and then he mentioned that he had been a CFP professional for 20 years. I had no idea what a CFP was at that point, but he suggested that I enroll in a CFP education program at Rice University, which is down here in Houston, Texas, if I really wanted to drink out of the fire hose in terms of learning a lot about personal finance. Regardless of whether or not I become a financial planner or not, he told me, hey, if you enroll in the CFP program, you're definitely going to know enough to start investing, when you're finished with that course. So I enrolled in the CFP education program where, while still working as a musician, but I decided about 3 classes in that that's exactly what I wanted to do for my next career, was really help families with their financial planning. So I asked Joe how I could start accumulating experience hours. And then he offered me a job at as a CRS, a customer service rep, at his independent fee-only RIA. So although my previous career was in music, I actually took about a 60% pay cut to change jobs. So since the firm I joined only had 3 advisors, one of the great things is that I was able to learn really about the industry from the ground up. I literally learned how they ran everything in the firm. I sat in the client meetings, answered the phone. I assisted the financial planner, and of course learned even how to make how to use the comb binding machine for kind of putting the financial plan deliverables together. So within 1 year at the firm, I had passed the CFP exam, and the financial planning director left to join another firm. So you can kind of imagine what happened next. Overnight, I became the lead financial planner. Before I even had the Series 65 or even had the ability to give financial advice. So overnight, I became the lead financial planner, passed the Series 65 exam. I did the CFP, then the 65. So I probably should have done that in the other order in terms of difficulty. But after that, I began developing my own financial planning process from scratch because I wasn't a big fan of e-money, kind of like inputting stuff and printing reports. I wanted to do more customized planning. So I built my own planning process from scratch. So as I created the comprehensive financial planning process and continue to learn more about financial planning by serving about 100 families, I had a sense of urgency to share what I was learning with more people outside of the firm. So I believe that the best way to learn is to teach. So teaching others what you're learning while you're learning provides 2 major benefits, right? It helps others learn and improve their own situation. And it also reinforces your own knowledge. So it kind of tightens the screws of your own financial knowledge. As a member of personal finance Facebook groups, I used the opportunity, being in those groups to help group members understand more about personal finance beyond the rules of thumb, right? So we all know that there's a lot of rules of thumb, like the 3 to 6 month emergency fund, and some of the really bad kind of rules of thumbs, like your age in bonds and some of those things that we've heard about along the way. But I really wanted to go beyond the basics and beyond the rules of thumb and help people make their own well-informed decisions. So I really believe that the role of a financial planner is not necessarily to tell people what to do. I know that even though if we serve delegators or DIYers, our role is really to provide education to help families make a lot of their own well-informed decisions, including outside of investments. Within 6 months of providing value to the Facebook group communities, without ever mentioning I was an advisor or linking anybody to my firm, I received between 3 to 5 planning inquiries in my Facebook DMs every week. This resulted in over $45,000 in planning revenue within the first 2 months of 2021, without any traditional marketing tactics or paid advertising. So I realized at that point that I could probably launch my own business, serving DIY investors with comprehensive financial planning, and simultaneously create our desired personal lifestyle as a family. And this is on your screen. That's just kind of as we know, comprehensive financial planning really covers a lot of different areas outside of how most consumers think of us as choosing investments. So I gave my boss a 3-month notice, which is a lot better than the 2-week notice that people talk about. But I launched my solo RIA, Measure Twice Financial, in June of 2021. So a little like I guess about 9 months ago. So as a financial planner, I have limited my capacity to serve only 22 clients per year. I work in the business only 10 hours a week on financial planning. I take off December each year. So even working 10 hours a week with taking 1 full month off per year, I have gross revenue of $140,000, a 95% profit margin before compensation, and 65% profit after compensation. So I understand that my one-to-many impact through financial education will likely be much greater than my impact serving clients one-on-one. So since I spend just 10 hours a week doing financial planning, I spend over 20 hours per week. Over 20 hours per week is spent creating educational content to give away for free. By generously giving away what I do and how I do it, because I really understand the value of financial planning is the relationship more than the information. The demand for my one-on-one financial planning practice has actually increased to 20 prospective clients per week, which is if I had taken all of those clients on, all the prospective clients on, that would be over $6 million in annualized revenue if I wanted to expand and become an enterprise firm. But that's actually not my vision or what fulfills me. My personal metric for success has nothing to do with revenue, but rather how much can I give away without expecting anything in return. So other advisors have told me that I'm actually having a scarcity mindset, right? By not taking advantage of the high demand for my financial planning, or charging other advisors for referrals. So since I'm at full capacity, I'm giving away all of my referrals on my website. My advice only financial planner referral list on my website. I've put that on my website so that I can really automatically redirect those prospective clients to other financial planners to meet their needs. My referral list of advice only financial planners who don't manage investments, that PDF has been viewed 700 times in the last 28 days in terms of referrals coming to other great advisors. So since joining the financial planning industry, I've noticed strong attitudes about various advisor marketing strategies, especially what I've seen on LinkedIn over time. So some advisors double down on LinkedIn and Facebook DMs, Google ads, cold calling, door knocking, which has been, of course, reduced since the pandemic, or pay to play lead generation, which is really big on LinkedIn. I'm sure a lot of you get DMs on people wanting to grow their network on LinkedIn. So others believe a well-crafted email newsletter is the magic formula, or are glad to receive all client inquiries through word of mouth referrals. And there are still more than a handful who do provide kind of the steak dinner, traditional steak dinner seminars. So I have categorized each perceived form of advisor marketing into 3 groups, and I'm going to explain each approach using an extended metaphor that many of us can relate to, which is finding a landscaper to mow your lawn. So the first form of marketing. So has anybody here ever arrived home to find a business card jammed in your front door from the landscaper? I see James, you're nodding there. You got one of those business cards, Maureen. So yeah, when you open the door, it falls to your welcome mat. You see the logo and the phone number for, see here, this is Mike's Lawn Care Service. So the moment that you realize that Mike exists, he is already selling you a service or a product. At this point, you are merely viewed as a potential customer without any human connection previously. So you may assume that this form of kind of impersonal marketing isn't very successful until we realize its parallels with the financial advisory industry. So thousands of advisors are cold calling, sending unsolicited messages on social media, knocking on doors, and using an elevator pitch as a core marketing strategy. So these marketing methods may be efficient and effective for transactional businesses, right? But they aren't as effective when building a business focused on building collaborative relationships. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of how I see the industry moving toward relationships over transactions moving forward. So the second form of marketing, so instead of the business card of the landscaper stuck in your door, so imagine we actually meet for breakfast and you say, "Hey, Cody, I've been thinking about hiring somebody to mow my lawn. Since we live in the same neighborhood, do you have any recommendations?" So of course I say, "Oh yeah, I hired this guy, Mike, to mow my lawn. He does a great job. And here's his phone number." So although similar to the first form of marketing, when you simultaneously learned about Mike and the service he provides, there's an additional level of perceived value and trust, right? Since you trust that my recommendation as your friend is in your best interest. So financial advisors applaud and welcome this form of marketing, commonly called word of mouth referrals. Knowing that clients trust and value your services enough to even refer their close friends and family feels really good. When I ask advisors how they find prospective clients and they respond, "I don't do any marketing. All of our new business comes from client referrals." There's often an air of confidence, but this also reveals an underlying truth. If only receiving future client relationships through client referrals, the advisor is likely not providing value to families outside of their current client base, whether through financial education, one-to-many, or active engagement within the advisor community. So again, us on the call, we're kind of different. We're showing up to these things and learning more, and staying driven and being intentional about kind of growing our personal and business practices. So congratulations to everybody getting extra credit here today. So referrals can be the least expensive form of marketing from like a monetary perspective, but they may also indicate a lack of motivation to provide value to families one to many. So the third form of marketing. So this time, imagine that you're sitting at your breakfast table in the morning. You're looking out the window across the street where you notice a guy mowing your neighbor's lawn. So you realize that he arrives, you kind of look down at your watch and you go, wow, this guy shows up every Friday at precisely 8 o'clock in the morning. He rakes, he mows, prunes, trims with precision like an artist. He doesn't rush or cut the corners, even though he doesn't think anybody is watching him. Observing him over time, you can tell that he is passionate and fulfilled by his work. You go, wow, that's who I want to hire to mow my lawn. So you walk across the street, introduce yourself, and ask if he is available to be your landscaper. By the time you meet Mike to learn about his business process, service, and fee, you have already observed him providing value to your community. So we as advisors have an incredible opportunity to lead with this third form of marketing. So kind of ask yourselves, how can you provide value to others without advertising your services, but instead by sharing what you do and how you do it without expecting anything in return, right? So not as a strategy, but as a way of life. If you haven't read this book called The Go-Giver, it's a great book that really talks about how by just being generous rather than doing something expecting, giving to others with expecting some sort of, for them to become clients or some type of revenue drivers. If you just give without expecting anything in return, you can end up receiving way more in return than you would have using those traditional marketing techniques we talked about on marketing number 1 and 2. So I encourage you to think of ways that you can provide value to the families you want to serve, even before they know your business exists. And I'll go a little bit more in kind of how you identify that. So before determining how you can be generous to your community this way, you first need to understand whom you serve and how you serve in as much detail as possible. So imagine today is your first day in business. So you just launched your firm and your first ideal prospective client comes through the door. So who are they? Again, as much detail as possible. I'll send out, I'll make sure that they send out the slides as PDF afterwards so you can kind of go through it yourself. But ask yourself questions, who do I serve, right? Are they single, married, divorced, widowed? Do they have kids? Kind of what stage of life are they at? What is the age of the client? Where do they live? You can see this lineup of, there's a lot of kind of quantitative and qualitative parts of understanding who your ideal client is, including things at the end here, like how do they prefer to learn, right? Do they prefer to learn by video, by reading, by audio? Are they tactile learners that they want to kind of, they want to be in person, kind of moving the money around with you on a piece of paper, or even in other tactile ways. So, and also, why did they come to see you specifically? So I'm not talking about necessarily the clients you serve now, but if you could have one ideal client come into your new firm, like try to describe that person as much as in as much detail as possible. And there's actually a good chance that person is somebody like you, or maybe somebody you'll become, in the next 10, 20 years. So for example, who do I serve? I serve DIY investors who want to be work optional, retire early within the next 5 years. So my ideal is married couple, young kids. They want to work 100% remote with me. They don't want to do ongoing planning, but they do want to maybe meet once a year doing project-based planning. They prefer to learn by truly like doing really deep education, right? And they came to me specifically because I'm one of the only advisors that's provided value to them in terms of education. And I also don't have any expectation or even the option to manage their investments as DIY investors. So, how do you serve? So this really comes down to, what does your process look like? Of course, you connect this to who you're serving in your firm as well. So, how can you specifically help? What are the problems that you can help solve? Which financial areas do you review? Like, do you do tax planning? Whereas, maybe some other advisors around your area don't do that, or do you specialize in equity compensation or student loan, debt repayment? So again, the who do you serve and how do you serve are very closely connected. But I won't go down the full list, but I'll send this out as a PDF so everybody can review later on. So this isn't really interesting. So people ask me all the time, how do you create content? Like, how do you create authentic content? How do you create something valuable for the communities, for the ideal client that you want to serve, especially one-to-many? And I always say the best way to show someone that you care about them is to actually care about them. So not until you genuinely care and have it like authentic curiosity about the families you're serving, it's going to be very difficult to figure out how to provide a lot of value to them, especially before they become clients. So kind of go deeper into, being intentional about who and how you serve. Therefore, you can know, at that point, you'll kind of know how they perceive value and how they would like to receive value, even if you're creating one-to-many content, not just one-on-one financial planning or advising. So we'll go into questions soon. A lot of people ask me, especially being an advice-only financial planner who does things a little bit differently than kind of the traditional route. My kind of perspective about the future of the industry is really that our industry right now, there's still a lot of transactional. Even the way we use language with our industry is very transactional. Like, you pay me, I manage your investments, or you pay me, I tell you what to do. It's kind of like a binary approach and not as much of a collaborative relationship. So I believe, especially working with millennials and younger, that there's especially those generations are more so, they're kind of starving for authenticity and transparency, which I really think comes through like you see kind of the first and third bullet point here, really comes from building collaborative relationships focused on education. Really, I find that the most sustainable way to connect with a family is to really be education focused, not just telling them what to do, but showing them how to do it and ultimately why that decision aligns with their personal objectives and values. So the second one there is genuine curiosity. Kind of like what I said before, if you're just naturally, genuinely curious about the families you're serving, that's going to just make it a lot easier for you to ask great questions in your meetings. It's going to help you. One of my metrics of a great advisor is that they ask about a client's family before they ask about their money, right? Another thing that I do in terms of changing the way I use language is, instead of saying my clients, I say the families I serve. And something interesting here is that I'm not just saying this as a kind of a third for somebody to perceive me a certain way by saying the families I serve rather than my clients, but as I say the families I serve over time, by saying that over and over again, it slowly changes the way I think about the clients, right? It changes the way I actually view the families I serve when I use that language consistently, to myself and to when I'm speaking with others. Comprehensive scope, I really do think that things like tax planning and really just things that go beyond investment management will become a lot more kind of assumed. Right now, when somebody says I'm a financial advisor or financial planner, the retail, retail investor, the consumer, just they usually assume that your primary value is choosing investments, which can certainly be part of your value. But as you know, like we all do a lot more than that for clients. So really, not just having a comprehensive scope of engagement, but really helping prospective clients understand your service process and fee before they even become clients, so you can create that expectation as early as possible. Last two here was, again, service and pricing. I think that moving forward, a lot of clients will want to see pricing both as a percentage and as a dollar amount examples on websites. I really see that moving forward, and it's in terms of how people refer others. And the last one is unzipped, kind of, not necessarily. I think clients are going to want to work with the best person for them rather than working with whoever's in their area. So I think that the zip code will become a lot more irrelevant in the next 5 to 10 years. And lastly, niche focused, kind of what we said before. If you really define who and how you serve, that naturally creates a niche. Even if you're kind of more of a generalist now, or maybe you just kind of do retirement planning or accumulation planning. I think actually the more narrow the filter you create, actually, I think the more sustainable and profitable you can make your practice. So, I mean, I'm very particular about serving DIYers on the path to early retirement within 5 years, without managing their investments. And just by having not necessarily compensation model, but serving those communities. Again, like I have way more, I only need 22 clients a year to work with in my case, but whether it's 100 or 500 clients, now that people are going to be unzip code and using a financial planner across the nation, you could probably niche down and still fill your full capacity. So as I drink some water, I welcome any questions from anybody along the way about my practice, about personal life. I'm an open book. So go ahead and ask any questions you like.
Hey, Cody, this is James Lofton here. I want to thank you for speaking today. I love your business model for you. I think that's a great,
Right.
I think you spent a lot of time working on that, and clearly you found a niche in the marketplace. I love what you've done, and I think you need to tell your story as often as you can, because you're an inspiration for a lot of young and I would say even mid-career people in the business. You ramped up a whole career inside of 4 years. And certain people out there are what I call disruptors that are making a difference. And you're clearly one of those people. So keep it up, man.
Thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. And one thing, James, you touched on is, I think this is really great that you said it's a great thing that, like, for me, right? I think that just like when we provide financial advice, as we know, like, I'm actually trademarking the phrase "keep finance personal," because I think that the personal part of finance has slowly been removed, as most of our financial information comes from kind of media sources and maybe some personalities. So I believe, just like we don't give one size fits all financial advice, the way you create your practice, who and how you serve, and how you charge for that service, whether it's advice only or AUM, commission sales, whatever way you end up doing that, it's not one size fits all. So I actually tweeted today. A lot of people assume that I'm anti-investment management. I go, no. That's just specifically who and how I serve. And, just like, you avoid one size fits all with advice, definitely avoid one size fits all with how you create your business to support your personal life.
Yeah, that's great, Cody. One other comment I would have on that is, don't pigeonhole yourself to where you can't grow and evolve. You may be that way today, and in the future, you may expand more into the investment market, and that's okay. If you evolve, and you can still, there's enough financial planning that needs to be done out there that, there's an ocean full of fish out there that need help. And so whether you're dealing with it, I think the important thing is clearly identifying your niche and specializing in that is the way to go. And for you, I think it's just a wonderful story. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions for me?
Yeah, Cody,
Hey, David.
This is David. So you mentioned that list that you have of advice-only planners. I'm just curious about, that list is freely available. I just popped it open. It took me a minute to find it, but I eventually did. What's the special relationship that, these people have landed on that list?
Yeah, so it is still very difficult in terms of there's way more demand than supply for advice only financial planning, without investment management on the ADV. The families I'm specifically serving, not only do they not want it as an option, but they really want to avoid any financial planning recommendations to be, and I would love to manage, I would love to help you manage your investments. That in terms of the screening, everybody on that list, actually most people on that list have been specifically part of mastermind groups of mine. So I'm in an XY Planning Network mastermind. I'm in an advice only mastermind group. I'm in another mastermind specifically for planners who work with early retirees before 59 and a half. So yeah, most of the screening really comes from just, developing relationships with them. I set up a call with anybody before adding a name to that list, in terms of not just compliance and kind of having a process there, but I really do want to ensure that families are finding the right fit for them, regardless. Advice only is really the only, the common denominator there. But if you or somebody could potentially be on that list, I'm welcome to have a conversation. My goal with that list, by the way, is I want everybody on that list to be at deliberate capacity within the next year. And then at that point, they would be taken off the list. But I'm encouraging everybody on that list who reaches their own definition of full capacity, they're going to add the list to their website as well to just continue to pay it forward for. I believe that free referrals, again, it aligns with the core value of generosity.
No, that's great. Yeah, I also see that a number of the advisors on there offer retainer-based planning, but you're more like one time, more like a project, right? Or one time plan.
I love that you brought that up. So yeah, I offer a 3-month, 3-meeting process. It's $6,400. The average client I work with has between $2 and $8 million investable net worth that they manage themselves. And one of the big misconceptions about the one-time plan is that it doesn't have to happen just once. So what's really funny about the way my firm is built is that my ADV at the beginning of every year, it says 0 clients, 0 assets. And people go, that's scary. Like, how is that sustainable? First of all, I have an 18-month waiting list on top of referring away 20 clients a week. And I think that the sustainability really comes from now I'm going down a rabbit hole. I kind of forgot what I was talking about, but here, ask your question one more time, or where was I going there?
Yeah, so some of them are ongoing retainer based, and you're more just
right.
I call it one time. I don't think that's what you call it, but
no, yeah, well, I love that. So yeah, a lot of people do come for the one-time plan. The funny thing about a plan, as we know, a plan is the word plan itself is a noun and a verb, but I believe that the financial plan as a noun is the natural gateway to planning as a verb. So I would recommend that even if somebody only offers ongoing, that they consider offering like the one-time or project-based plan, because sometimes that can be the only way that family really understands the value of planning. They kind of want to try it out. They want to kind of go through the dating stage before they, become an ongoing client. And another thing is the misconception is a one-time plan doesn't have to happen just once. And most of the 9 out of 10 clients that I've worked with, they want to do the one-time plan, the project-based 3-month plan. They want to do it every year. So, there's sustainability in that as well. And I would say the reason that that's sustainable, the reason they want to come back for more, is because when you lead with an educational, when you focus on collaborative relationships and educational focused approach, I think education is one of the most sustainable ways to build relationships. And that's just one more way that kind of focusing on relationships rather than transactions is actually more sustainable, regardless of how you charge for it.
Sure. Thanks.
I have a question, Cody.
Sure.
When you talked about the 3 forms of marketing, I'm assuming you are following the 3rd form of marketing in terms of providing education and value. Just wondering, how have you been able to reach out to individuals? So how do you market to using the 3rd form?
Yeah, so this all started in, so while I was even studying for the CFP exam, I was a part of personal finance Facebook groups. And if you've ever been in a group like that, there's a lot of people asking questions like, should I contribute to a Roth or a traditional 401k? And most of the people in the comments are just saying what they would do. They go, oh, you need to go Roth, you need to go traditional Roth. They're just kind of fighting back and forth saying, oh, this is what I would do if I were you, which again, we know that they aren't them. And that's what's really important. So rather than telling people what to do in the comments on Facebook, I would simply say, here are a few things to consider before making this important decision. Boom, boom, boom. Here's kind of like, first of all, what is Roth? What is traditional? What are some things you can consider? As I answer those questions, I was answering the same questions over and over again. So I created an educational blog called Measure Twice Money. So I have an article called it's the 12 advantages and disadvantages of both traditional and Roth to help families make their own decisions. So I would just create content and give away education. And what's amazing is I never mentioned I was an advisor. I never said, and if you want to learn more, set up a free consultation. I simply just gave the education in the comment and then, moved on down the road. And within 6 months, I was receiving the 3 to 5 clients. They were sending me a message, not me sending them a message. So just by providing education without expecting anything in return, they saw trust and value in that. And they go, there's something different about this guy. right, than what I've perceived, it's because DIY, the communities I serve specifically, they're very anti-advisor, like not just like anti-AUM or, they don't believe that there's any value. They'll all tell you in those Facebook groups, and their voices, their message is slowly changing as they're seeing more of what I'm doing. But they really, if somebody says, hey, do you think it makes sense to work with an advisor? And they say, nobody cares more about your money than you do. You might have heard that before. Or like all you need is to put your money in the total stock market index and you'll be fine. Like, as we know, that's not financial planning, but that's how consumers, that's how they understand the value or the lack of value from the financial advising industry. So Maureen, I'll just kind of follow with that. Now, what's really funny is I went on to Twitter. So my audience for Twitter is other financial advisors, just sharing information with just sharing, like measuretwiceplanners.com. I'm actually sharing my entire financial planning process and how I review real financial documents. I'm giving all that away on Measure Twice Money and measuretwiceplanners.com. And just by giving away that content on Twitter, now I'm receiving 2 a week, 2 prospective clients a week from Twitter from DIY investors that's not even, they see me providing value to advisors and they're just observing that from a distance going, wow, like I want to work with that guy for an advisor. So I think it's all about just provide value to the communities that you're already a part of and that you serve, and do it because you want to. Again, it all comes back to that authenticity, like the just being genuine about caring enough about a person to give it away regardless of whether they become a client or not.
Excellent.
Hey, Cody, can I ask you, were there any logistical challenges in particular with starting your business, from website design to finding somebody to do your website to naming to LLC versus S corporation? I mean, do you have any guidance or direction from a mentor or anybody in particular?
Yeah. So when launching a business, I 100% I recommend XY Planning Network. Not necessarily in terms of like, I don't use most of like the tech stack that's involved in membership in terms of like I don't really use financial planning software. I have my own, tools that I create. I don't really use, I don't use the CRM and things like that. But the best thing about XY Planning Network is they have, actually, you can get this for free, Charles, is just type into Google, type in XY Planning Network checklist. And there's like a list of all the things that you should consider before launching your practice, including things like the website, getting your logo, kind of the things we forget about in terms of working on the business. We're usually focused on another recommendation here is if you haven't read the book, The E-Myth, which is really understanding your role as a technician, a manager, and an entrepreneur in your business. That's a really important book to read, just so that you don't end up going, kind of digging into the weeds on the technical side and not kind of, working on your business. So XY Planning Network's great. In terms of website, if you go to my website, I built that from scratch, or I didn't build it. Somebody else built it from scratch. It was $1,500, like not cheap, but a lot less expensive than using some other services. But that was a Cobalt Sapphire, cobaltsapphire.com. 2 amazing women. One is a web designer, and the other one is a branding expert. They built my website from scratch. And then what's nice about that is they built it from scratch, but they don't charge me for ongoing. They just say, okay, we built it. It's yours. If you need anything, just let us know. So it's $1,500 a one-time, build my site all the way, including, understand, like they did all my branding and stuff from the beginning. So I'd recommend that, from a website perspective. Are there any other things technically that you're kind of wondering about in terms of launching?
No, that's a great start.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And thank you for doing this. It is definitely a detailed look into what your business looks like, which sometimes people are very protective of, and that's certainly understandable. But given how generous you are, it does really bode well for your business model, and it really does align your values. So thanks for today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And with that, I'll say a lot of people ask me, like, how are you so intent? Like, you seem to have a lot of vision, you're very intentional about how you're doing things. One is I use a business coach. Brian Willett. I use what's nice about having a business coach also that doesn't just focus on advisors, but just focuses on, entrepreneur. Like he specifically helps people who own multiple businesses within a brand. So I have Measure Twice as a brand, but I own Measure Twice Financial, Measure Twice Money, and Measure Twice Planners. So yeah, certainly having a business coach is helpful. I also, I think being on the FPA Activate Facebook group, XY Planning Network VIP Facebook group, you don't have to be a member of XY Planning Network to be on the Facebook group, but I think that we are an incredibly generous industry, a lot more than consumers realize. Everybody on this list has generosity, and we really do care about people. It's just sometimes it's hard to get that message across, without feeling like you're, selling something. But one book that's really helped me, if you haven't read it yet, if you've heard of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Organization System, most people kind of take on the EOS process when they have employees. But I think even as a solo advisor, you should read the book Traction. There's a book called Traction, and the second chapter, I believe, is called Vision. So what's really important for anybody who owns a business is that you have to understand your core values and you have to understand your core focus. So just to show you how intentional I am there, my core values are generosity, transparency, and intentionality. So every action I take and everything on my calendar, I have to say, does this align with my core values? Right. So again, this seminar, right? Core values, generosity, I'm doing this, I'm giving this away. I'm not charging for this because I love to share this information because I think it'll help people. Transparency, I'll tell you anything you want to hear. And intentionality, I'm doing this because I specifically believe that the future of the industry is going to be very collaborative and generous. And I think that, we like James, you said, we need to spread that message. But those are my core values. And the thing is, the core focus is just a one-liner of what you actually do, right? So your core value is how you do your work. And then your core focus is what your work is. So my core focus is helping families make their own well-informed financial decisions. And my core values are generosity, transparency, and intentionality. So once you understand both of those things, it's so easy to look at your calendar to say, hey, the actions I'm taking and the time I'm spending actually align with what I want to do and who I want to serve. That's been really helpful. So you don't necessarily need a business coach right away, but definitely check out Traction. And check out the E-Myth if you're into reading.
Thank you, Cody. Could you share the name of your coach again?
Sure. It's Brian Willett, BrianWillet. He's in Kentucky, so he's got similar accents to everybody here on the call, including me.
Thank you.
And yeah, he has a group of coaches, not just him, but he has a group of coaches, I believe, male and female. And what's great about him is that a lot of advisor coaches are focused on doing the least amount of work for the most amount of money. But if revenue is not your key driver of advisor success, as you can see, revenue is not my driver, because otherwise it'd be, I'd be taking on a chief of staff and other planners at this point. But what's great about him is he really seeks to understand your values and your focus rather than just telling you what he would do. So just like a financial planner, we need to understand the quantitative and qualitative details of a person and their family. He really gets to know you as a person. And I'm not compensated for any referrals to him, by the way. Again, generosity, transparency is the way to go.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Welcome. Any more questions? I think we can go to the hour, but maybe we'll end a little early so we can all go to the pool after this.
I was just wondering, what's the future of your business? Is this the mountaintop for you, or is your goal to move and spread your message and just be an advisor coach, or what's your ultimate goal?
Yeah, I love that you asked that. So first of all, I'll kind of start with what people are telling me is happening. So some people are kind of saying that I'm kind of like the Michael Kitces of DIY investors, whereas he's the Michael Kitces of advisors. I'm the DIY. I'm the kind of the Kitces for DIY investors, which means that, I give 99% of what I do away for free. And then the 1% covers all the revenue. So I think from the business perspective, that's correct. My actual goal is that I want Measure Twice Financial. I'm actually going to scale down. I'm going to do less financial plans. I'm doing 10 hours a week now, probably do 5 hours a week next year. I want to grow Measure Twice Money into really a nonprofit where it's really just focused on giving financial education away. My entire financial planning process, how I review every financial document, I've outlined 88 planning topic areas. I'm going to show how I do every one of those. Those are going to be in article form. Those are going to be in podcast form. Those are going to be in video course form. As you know, creating video is the most expensive and time consuming part. So I think that's the only part of Measure Twice Money I'll end up charging for is a video course on how to create a comprehensive plan from the ground up. So I'll probably turn that into a book as well. I'll probably give the book away for free. Again, I think that it's interesting having a balance between being accessible, right? Like you want to be accessible, but you also want to like really have, clear boundaries in your professional and personal life. In the last 3 months, I've received 1,200 emails from other advisors that want to know how I do what I do in terms of, about half of them want to know, like, how do I get a lot of clients really fast? The other half really want to know, like, I really want to know how to create a financial planning process without using any deliverables from eMoney or Right Capital or whichever planning software. So the future for me is I want to be financially independent. I don't want revenue to be a metric of success at all at age 40, so that I can literally give all of it away for free. Because I'm way more fulfilled by giving away than I am, first of all, doing one-on-one, and also even, I don't want to create a barrier between DIY investors, especially understanding the value of real financial planning. And what's really great about me being at capacity is as DIY investors learn about the value of working with an advisor, like I'm going to actually be able to be even more generous by, future, including, advisors on this call, and future advisors are going to be a lot more influenced to change the way, again, be more intentional about who and how they serve. A lot of DIY investors, I'd probably say like 25 or so have reached out to me saying, hey, I love what you're doing. I would love to be an advisor like you. How do I get started? And I think that it's incredible that people who are in the anti-advisor community are now seeing not only the value of working with a financial planner, but they're actually considering becoming a financial planner when they retire early. Any more?
Well, one thing that occurs to me, Cody, as I've seen some of your tweets, and I really enjoy, seeing you on Twitter, but your financial plan is as comprehensive as it can be.
Right.
And you're doing this in 3 meetings. And maybe my clients just need a lot more hand-holding.
Right.
But
yeah, who you serve, right? Yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe it's part of it by picking a client who is a DIY investor. They're also very effective in following your instructions.
Right.
And executing, the plan. So maybe that's how you get to the 3 meetings, but I'm still kind of struggling with just how you collect all that information and feed it back and educate in just 3 meetings.
Yeah. So one thing to keep in mind is that, since I'm working with DIY investors and like the financial independence communities, most of the clients I serve, they're not advisors, but they actually read the Kitsis blog, like that level of like sophistication. I would say most of the clients I serve know more than the average financial advisor does about like, and that's also one reason it's been really difficult for them to find an advisor. They'll go to an advisor and say, hey, I want to utilize the rule of 55. And they're like, what's that? Or like, I want to do this strategy. Like I want to do Roth conversions. And they're like, we don't do tax planning. They're like, they want to do these like sometimes more elaborate or like strategic things, but they can't find an advisor that first of all understands it, but second of all is willing to like really collaborate and like really educate. So the reason, the biggest reason that the clients I serve end up actually implementing what we talk about, I hear that concern a lot. People say, okay, well, if you're not doing ongoing planning, like, do they even do anything that you like? Do they even implement? Like, how is that sticky? And it's because, so when you think about a financial plan, like the average financial plan, I think an advisor provides is a lot of printed reports from a planning software, right? So just for everybody who doesn't know, my financial planning presentation is typically about 40 pages long, which is like, sounds like, okay, well, you're just printing stuff from, but each one of those pages is a 1-page summary of an educational summary about a financial planning topic. So the average financial plan covers 25 planning areas out of like kind of the 88 that I've outlined. But for example, I'll have a kind of look at one. So I have a debt repayment, a debt repayment summary. It's a 1-page debt repayment summary, but I really educate them about the rational versus reasonable approach of should I pay off debt or quote unquote invest the rest, right? We talk about kind of the rational, like, how much risk return over different periods of time, in alignment with your debt repayment strategy, your debt repayment period. But then from a reasonable perspective, we talk about money in terms of time. So instead of spending, we talk about, so I spend 5 hours with the client. So the first hour is our intro call. I spend an hour and a half on our what I call the data gathering meeting, which I share all my notes on the screen with the client and just talk them through opportunities that I found when reviewing their documents. They typically send me 40 to 50 documents to review. And then the last call is 2.5 hours. And that's where I present their plan. And it's really just education focused. I don't focus on the details because again, if I want them to implement stuff, even though sometimes they're technical people, they don't just need to know what the thing is. They ultimately decide what to do, but I teach them how to do it and why they're doing it in alignment with their own values and objectives. So when you focus on education, it's not as like 2.5 hours. It's not 2.5 hours of like, line by line technical knowledge. It's literally like a picture of how how a qualified charitable distribution works, or it's a picture of how a donor advised fund works. So I spend most of my time educating and having a collaborative conversation than I do just like, telling them what to do next.
What I'm imagining is once you deal with that particular topic with a client, you can reuse that with future clients. So you're not always making up that page every time.
Yeah. So yeah, every one of my topics is templated. I have an Excel calculator, a Word file, and a PDF for every template. But I just to let everybody know, I do a 3-month 3-meeting process, but I spend 15 hours on the back end developing a financial plan and 5 hours with the client. So if you put that against my fee of $6,400, I charge $320 an hour for 20 hours of work. And I just work with 2 clients a month.
Interesting. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. I'll take one more question if anybody wants to be bold, be generous. All right, I'll give you 10 seconds and we'll kick it off to what the next meeting is going to be. All right, take it away, FPA Georgia. You got this. Oh,
You're
sorry,
unmuted.
James. I think you're muted.
Great. So coming up next month, we're going to be having the Bridge the Divide, our 2022 annual symposium on April 27th. We have a really incredible lineup of speakers coming. Can't wait for you guys to see all that. I would definitely tell some friends. We're really trying to grow and expand the chapter this year. A lot of next gen people coming through, I know, through our practice, and just spread the word. We're here to present, help represent the CFP and spread the whole career of financial planning throughout Georgia and the Southeast. And that doesn't happen without you guys all participating, getting people to join. And like Cody said, giving back. That's what it's all about. I know if most of you had mentors or teachers throughout your career that gave you the opportunity to do what you're doing for a living, I would commend you all to reach out and try to find a way to give back to the career. And it's probably been pretty good to you the last few years. So thank you again, Cody, and thank you all for coming. And we appreciate your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Connect on LinkedIn if you haven't already. All right.
Thanks,
Take care.
Cody. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Cody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it all. Love it.
Bye-bye.